G'day. Here at the Regenerative Journey, part of our goal is to educate our followers on the benefits of knowing where their food comes from and the knock-on effects this can have on our health, our environment and our future generations. Understanding the connection has never been more important, and in the spirit of this endeavour, we have teamed up with Highland Beef Pastoral Company, a grass-fed beef supply chain servicing the growing US grass-fed consumer market, who I'm excited to announce are our Season 6 show sponsors. Essentially, this Australian-based business places cattle on their member graziers' properties at no expense to the farmer and provides competitive returns for every kilo of beef produced, allowing their graziers to focus on improving their businesses in a capital-free and risk-free environment. Highland Beef graziers are some of the best grass and animal managers in the country. Livestock are humanely and lovingly cared for while on their farms, and customers are guaranteed a very high-quality, regeneratively managed grass-fed and finished product with full transparency from farm to plate. If you're interested in finding out more about this program, visit hbpastoral.com.au/Charlie Arnott. This episode of The Regenerative Journey is generously sponsored by Resource Consulting Service Australia, who have been transforming farming businesses and empowering people for over 30 years.
The goal has always been to bring those thought leaders together to challenge the way we look at things and what questions are we not asking ourselves? Are there any gaps in what we're doing? And so that's pretty exciting to be able to do that, and then to be able to talk that through with a group of people that are on the coal front leading the way in agriculture. It's a real privilege. It's great fun.
That was Dave McLean, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey. From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host, Charlie Arnott.
G'day, welcome back to The Regenerative Journey, and this special episode was recorded back in the middle of July at the RCS Convergence conference. It's the Convergence of Agriculture, Human and Planetary Health, and it was an absolute ripper. What I did was I dragged kicking and screaming. No, not really. They were very willing participants for interviews outside at different breaks. The attendees and a few of the speakers of the conference, which was, I have to say, one of probably the best conference I've been to. It was very timely, given that it had been sort of 12 years since the previous one. The 10-year plan or the 10-year cycle of the RCS major conferences was thrown out of whack for obvious reasons. So everyone was chomping at the bit to get to Brisbane. 600 plus people attended, and I was fortunate enough to be one of them and listen to some amazing global thought leaders on the topics of human planetary health and agriculture. But the other wonderful thing was that we had some wonderful case studies and clients of RCS who told their stories of regeneration, not just their businesses and the landscape, but themselves as individuals and families. So that was such a really clever way of, just addition to it. It made it so much more relevant, having those stories told in front of those attendees there. And if you missed out, and even if you didn't miss out on the actual conference, but you want to get a bit of another hit, but especially those who missed out, because I have to say you missed out on an amazing 2 days of speakers and conferencing. Is that a word? Conferencing. But RCS are very, very generously, I have to say, for the price of $150, you can access this 2 full days of those presenters and the vibe and the energy of the clients and those who are there. They've captured everything, and some real highlights for me were the meditation, sort of I've forgotten the word, the meditation. Visualization that Zach Bush took us through on the Sunday morning. Walter Yenna, he's just an absolute legend. So pleased he was there, and he was on the case, as he is known to do with his whiteboard. Charlie Massey, of course, Terry McCosker. Terry did a great job of introducing some of the clients. And those clients then subsequently gave a bit of a prezzo on their particular journeys, which is fascinating. Ones from all over, different environments, different ages, different kind of situations, and it was just a lovely way to present and, I guess, showcase and identify the impact that RCS has had on many, many thousands of people and businesses across Australia in that 30 plus years. Who else do we have there? The list was not endless. Who else was there? Dinah Rodgers, whom I actually interviewed for this little mashup. David McLean. So I'll give you a bit of a rundown on what you can look forward to listening to in the next sort of hour or so. David McLean, the chief, the officer. Now I'm going to stumble over that now. Chief Delivery Officer, I think is his official title. I think it's a great description. Spoke to David. Dinah Rodgers, she was there in Australia only for a few days. This is the first trip to Australia. I thankfully was able to catch her a couple of days before the conference to interview her for the Regenerative Journey, which will be in the subsequent weeks. Stuart Austin, the General Manager of Wilmot Cattle Co. Caught up with Stu outside as well. He's up there at Ebor doing wonderful things and connected in some really cool ways to different other organisations, and are becoming a bit of a thought leader in the space, which I'm pleased to see the young man, taking his place in the space. Blaire Beattie, of course. Koala Blair to his mates. He's going to kill me for telling everyone that. Real troop. I love Blair and what he's doing with Farmers Footprint, which is an organisation that was just based in America, but has a chapter here in Australia. I'll be working with Blair and Farmers Footprint over the next sort of few months and 6 months or so. Really looking forward to that. Had a chat with Blair as part of this little mashup. Colin Feilen of My Grazing fame. Caught up with him I think it was the end of day one. He was a little nervous. I think he thought I was going to hit him up. That was the end of day 2, hit him up with some hard questions, but I didn't. I was very, very, very soft with Cole. Didn't want to scare him too much, but had a good chat with him and his impressions of the conference. Cherie Gooding, who's also interviewed a month or so before, a few weeks before the conference at her farm at near Beelawheeler in Queensland. She is really looking forward to releasing that episode. She's fantastic vet, who's had her own health challenges, and her study and her understanding of human and animal physiology has been stood her in good stead in understanding how to treat herself. Some more good yarns there with Cherie, and caught up with her at the conference. So a bit of a snippet of her outside. Murray Richardson of Highland Beef fame caught up with Murray and his impressions of the conference. And as you all well know, Murray and Highland Beef are sponsoring this season of the Regenerative Journey. Matt Tonkin, who I've known for a few years now, done some really interesting things in his life, had his own health challenges, which you can find. We didn't really go into at all in our little brief chat outside. That is for another time, and I'm hoping to track down Matty for an interview at some stage, but maybe in season 7. Matthew, look out, I'm coming after you. And last but not least, Damon Gameau, who of 2040 fame and Regenerating Australia. A recent doco he put out, it must have been early this year now. Time gets away. That 2040 came out, Oh, I reckon it's 2.5 years ago now. Lovely fella, and really pleased he's sort of in the space of regenerative agriculture and looking at it with a relatively clean pair of eyes, I have to say. He's always entertaining, and I spoke with Damon back in season 2 or 3, it might have been, of the Regenerative Journey. So go back in time, check out the list of previous episodes, and have a listen to him. Stuart Austin also I did interview. Blaire Beattie is going to be interviewed in this season, later in the season, and that's pretty much a wrap there. So just to finish up, please get online and explore the opportunity which RCS are giving you. If you go to rcsaustralia.com.au/the RCS story /RCS Convergence Conference. If that's all too much of a mouthful, go to the show notes. You'll see the link there. Jump on. $150 will give you full access to the whole conference. And if you couldn't be there, well worth it. So many nuggets of gold, throughout the 2 days. It was lovely to be there, but if you couldn't be there, you'll be able to pick up most of the vibe just via the opportunity to jump on the RCS website. Links in the bio, and check it out. That's probably enough from me. I think I've said enough. Really excited to get this mashup. I quite like that. I did it a couple of other times in a few other seasons at other conferences. Just getting different perspectives. How these guys are, their impressions of the conference, their favourite pieces and speakers and nuggets of gold, and how they're going to use what they heard in their own lives and businesses. So, really looking forward to releasing this. Here it is. The RCS Convergence Conference, Convergence of Agriculture, Planetary and Human Health, back from mid-July 2022. And I trust you enjoy listening to this as much as I did speaking with these wonderful people at the RCS Convergence Conference. David McLean, welcome to the outside area of the 2022 RCS Convergence Conference, where we've pounced on you. Everyone's gone back inside, and you assured me you weren't needed in there for the next 10 minutes, so we've jumped on you. Dave, you're the CEO of RCS. Chief of Delivery, the mailman. You've got a pivotal role here, so my questions probably need to be a little different. No, I'm not bugger it. I'm just going to. What are you here for? Apart from being involved, what do you want to get out of it? Let's just say that. What do you want to take home?
Like I said this morning, the first one is just to get this group of people together. It's bloody amazing to have just short of 600 people from the RCS network all in one spot. And I know, talking to a few people in the lead up to it, over the years of getting to this point, some of them have said that the speakers are quite secondary. And that really stood out to me.
Don't tell him that.
And so the networking, the ability to walk around and just see people and catch up with them it's fantastic, and reconnect with people and have some discussions about what they're hearing. So bringing those thought leaders, and the goal has always been to bring those thought leaders together to challenge the way we look at things, and what questions are we not asking ourselves? Are there any gaps in what we're doing? And so that's pretty exciting to be able to do that, and then to be able to talk that through with a group of people that are on the coal front leading the way in agriculture. It's a real privilege. It's great fun.
Do you think most of the people here previous clients or current clients of RCS? Do you think there'd have to be a majority, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anthony, the MC there, he asked this morning, put your hand up if you're a grad. It was a bit hard for me to see where I was, but I would suspect there'd be 90% plus that would be.
But isn't it good that there are people who aren't? I mean, that 10%, or I know quite a few who definitely aren't clients and probably should or would become clients, but they've just in the circle, communication, social media, and me bang on about you blokes from a podcast every for season 5. That hopefully got a few other along.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was part of the design with this one too. I think this conference, more so than the two prior, it is much more applicable to anybody, because we're talking about planetary health and human health as well as agricultural health. So, some of the information just then, whilst some participants that are here might not be able to directly apply it, the intent behind it and what it means at that convergence level, if we go back to the theme, I didn't see anyone nodding off anyway.
We were saying before with Stuart Austin, the way it was simply put and articulated would be compelling for anyone who walked off the street, I would suggest, and go, oh, that's actually, didn't think of that or whatever. So, and even though there's quite, advanced farmers in there, so to speak, there's still little gems in there all the way through. I mean, how Walt, one of my favourites is Walter. He's just one of my favourite human beings because he's just wonderful. Anyone, without you getting in trouble for saying so, any favourites?
Oh, it's hard to go past Fred. He's just such a...
Fred Provenza.
Fred Provenza. He's just such a delightful person and such an intellect. I mean, they're all incredibly intelligent people that we've had there. I love how it's all tied together. I love that we've had him just giving us that zoomed out perspective. What's actually going on? What are some of the trends? What is some of the history behind that? And then Diana to do that research that she's been doing, and that's to have her doing the work she's doing is critical for us as an industry, the livestock industry. It's absolutely critical. And then I think the next two ones came back to some of the practical nature of what do we need to know about soil. So I think they're all tied together beautifully. And I'm sure the conversations they're having in there now too will follow on from that.
I liked the way she brought in dairy and butter, and I know Hamish Mackay, he keeps talking about we can't let the meat industry, what happened we can't let what happened to the dairy industry with margarine happen to the beef industry.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's money is talking, isn't it? That's the only thing. And there's some good questions asked there about, as an industry, what can we do? What can we do to get some facts out there? I mean, the facts are there, but they're just been overridden. And that's a deep psychological question as to what's actually driving. Why would you want to eat something that's been brewed in a bloody lab tube over something that's real? And to say that that's healthy, when you sit down and have a conversation about it, it's absolutely illogical, isn't it?
Well, to me, there's clearly other things at play that probably need to be talked about, and we probably were touched on with diners a little bit. Mm-hmm. Dave, what are some takeaways? Things you're gonna do, look into, kind of actions. RCS love their actions. Yeah. What actions are you on your plate when you get out of here? Apart from having probably a week off.
Get ready for the Broken Hill School. I think the takeaways for there's some good... I like the way that... I like the way that Joel and Walter just phrased some things. And so there's some nice things we'll be able to refer back to them in the schools that we can take out. There's some research there that I want to go and chase up just to refine that role of the dead microbes. And it was a bit of a penny drop moment for me there, because I know in ruminant nutrition we talk about 70% of an animal's protein intake is microbial protein, dead microbes. And so then to take that across to when you've got this huge biological population down below ground, that was an important link for me. I'm probably a bit slow to catch on to some of this stuff. But
oh, no, there's so many gems there, and we're only up to lunchtime on the first day, so more to come. I'll have to catch up and say, now, Dave, what are the other 12 actions? No, I won't. I won't do that too. I know you got to save your voice for Monday.
I was thinking the same thing, though, as we're pulling up from that session there, that we're only a quarter of the way through. And I think it's been an amazing morning. The guys have pulled together a great outline and all tied in. And one of the comments I made there last night with Adam is that if something happens and a speaker couldn't get there, we're actually not reliant on any one speaker. They've got such a good lineup of speakers. There isn't necessarily a keynote, because they're all got something powerful to share. And
well, I was talking to Charlie Massey this morning, and he said he's got some heavy hitting stuff. He's introducing and banging on about this late tomorrow. And I said, that's right. So you're going to drop a couple of truth bombs and then bolt. He's the last one for the weekend. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I think that timing, and for him talking about something that we asked him to not cover the same stuff that he's covered elsewhere. Not that it's bad stuff, but we just wanted him to tie it all together. Where's his head at today as opposed to where it was when he wrote Call to the Reed Warbler and before.
Good call. Looking forward to that one, Dave. Mate, I'll let you get back to the zip up that mouth of yours and save your voice, and we get back to the after lunch session. Good. Thanks, mate. Thanks, awesome.
Man. Cheers.
Diana Rodgers, welcome to... Well, actually, I can't officially welcome you to the RCS Convergence Conference, but I'm an attendee, and we're outside. Smoko's just been. And Can we call it smoko? Morning tea.
Really funny.
Morning tea.
Yeah.
Because smoko probably has other connotations, does it?
Well, it's just your abbreviations for things in Australia really make me laugh. That's all. It's just really funny.
Because this is your first time here.
Yes, it is. Yep.
You've been here 4 or 5 days now, yeah?
Yeah, just about. Mhm.
And how many steaks have you eaten in that time?
Oh my goodness. Almost every meal.
Not just every dinner, every meal.
Every meal.
Yes, yesterday you was. I'm getting that mixed up. Yesterday you were saying that the day before you had three steaks in the day.
Yeah, so I got some local ribeyes and had a ribeye for breakfast, and then went out for lunch and had some ribeye with my friend Marty Kendall here in Brisbane, and then went out to dinner with you and Dr. Pran Yoganathan, and we got ribeyes.
Ribeyes, all right. I just love it. And how's the meat here in Australia? Are you finding it? How is it? For those who don't know, the talking about meat might become evident later on.
Oh, yeah, just wonderful. And actually, I was just mentioning to Michelle, your producer here, that the conference food at RCS is the best conference food I've ever experienced. And especially, not only is it delicious, but I'm celiac, and so, as you might imagine, it's a little bit nerve-wracking to be at a conference and rely on, conference staff sometimes aren't always on top of food allergies. But last night at the banquet dinner, all the entrees were gluten-free. I had some fish last night as a change of pace. It was delicious. Just had the little smoko.
Smoko.
Is that another word for snack too?
Yeah, like morning tea.
Yeah, so gluten-free. I mean, just amazing. So I've been very, very impressed.
Because you go to a few conferences, don't you? Like that's a pretty good accolade.
It's like basically my full-time job at this point is just attending conferences. So, but I've been just so impressed with this one.
Talking about conferences. So any highlights? We're sort of smoko day 2. Anyway, morning tea for those who want me to be more PC. Any highlights? Any sort of individuals that really stood out or their message?
Yeah, so yesterday my favorite talk was Walter Yene, for sure, and breaking out the whiteboard. It's just so analog and so welcomed, right? So I really loved his talk. And then this morning, John Kemp just blows my mind. I had him on my podcast after meeting him at a conference in about 2016. And we talked about completely different things: universal basic income, the future of farming, his predictions for sort of these like regional food hubs powered by an Uber-like system, which this was way before COVID. It was way before Uber. And he just nailed it. And so I was excited that he was speaking today. I made a point to get here in time for his talk this morning. And he did not disappoint. And it was a completely different talk this time, but it was equally mind-blowing.
And given the number of books in the background there's probably only 1% of the one. He obviously reads a lot, and what a wonderful, humble guy that's sort of he's almost a hub of all this stuff coming in. He deciphers it and sort of not rehashes it, but he can kind of then deliver it in a really digestible way, excuse the pun.
He can, but it's also not dumbed down. Like when he was talking about, I don't even know, what was it, rhizophagy?
Yep, right, yeah.
Whatever.
Rhizophagia.
But it was fascinating. But even just in the beginning, are things happening to you, or are you happening to things? And, I struggle with that sometimes when bad stuff happens. But resilience and passion are two things, and humility are really important to me, and clearly are very central to his message.
Well, it's a wonderful thing that he can put the science in with, maybe the more esoteric or the spiritual or the kind of the self awareness kind of stuff. So I think that's definitely one of his strengths. Anyone else that was sort of stood out? Any nuggets that you just went, wow, that's drop the mic?
Now you're putting me on the spot because I did not sleep very well last night, and If you had asked me this yesterday, I would have had a better
That's fine. You're just overwhelmed with the amazing information.
There's just been a lot. There's been a lot. And also, this is the fourth conference I've attended in 2.5 weeks. So give me a break.
I should have warned you before. Anything that you're going to go home and go, I'm going to go and read that book, call that person, go to the whatever. Is there anything that sort of inspired you to then do, actions from this?
Yeah, I've already ordered, right in the middle of John's talk, I ordered the 2 books that he mentioned in the beginning about how things in the world change.
Ray Dalio. Now, and what was the other one? I can't remember. We were trying to think of that before.
I'd have to look it up now on my phone.
Yeah.
I just my brain is about that of a gnat right now.
Well, I think anyone who wants to track that down, it's probably going to be on these video, not this video, or maybe this video, but certainly the videos of the conference, I'm sure will appear on RCS website somewhere so they can track it down. Or we might put it in the show notes if we can track it down too.
Yeah, and then, and I actually shared it on my Instagram. So and it was just 20 minutes ago,
We can
just
check it out.
I'm not super sharp by the end.
Just get it out now.
By the end of travel and multiple days of not sleeping great, you've reached me at my breaking point here. And my brain is pretty much full of cotton balls. But I've already messaged John, asked him to come back on my podcast. I might be doing a project with Prawn, so we just discussed that. And multiple projects going on with silver fern farms in New Zealand. They're coming to the U.S., and I'm helping to orchestrate a really awesome trip for some of the farmers that they're bringing over to the U.S. There's some stuff I'm doing with MLA here in Australia, back in the U.S. So, it's been very fruitful and exciting.
And I just spoke to Murray Richardson, who caught up with you, and maybe we might get you on a webinar for his, farmers in Highland Beef, sending that grass-fed beef into the US. So I think that was just top. I'll follow that up.
Yes, I remember looking at his business card last night and thinking I need to follow up with this guy, and I don't even remember.
No, that's it. Well, he'll be. If I see you two within 2 meters of each other, I'll remind you of each other. But he's a lovely fella, and Highland Beefs is wonderful supply chain, sending grass-fed beef into the US. So you might even see it over there. Butcher Box. Get on that Butcher Box, and that's the Aussie. That's his Highland Beef.
Yeah. Those guys are in the Boston area. I know them. They are close to me. So, what a great example of talking to someone that's completely brain dead after.
Not at all. I think I'm more brain dead. If it's a competition, I think I win. We'll leave it there. I'm not sure which sessions on next, but Dinah, thank you so much for your time. We can't wait for you to come back. Okay, so don't think this is your last trip. You've got a son who wants to go surfing, and you need to come back and just relax, spend enough time here to do some relaxing and not just charging around through every conference. And we'll make sure you have a lovely next day in Australia.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Dinah.
All right. Thank you.
Stuart Austin, welcome to what is the regenerative journey? Because this is going to go on an episode in season 6. We're here at the RCS Convergence conference in Brisbane. It's lunchtime. We're chewing into your valuable lunchtime. Tell me, why are you here? What was in it for you to turn up today?
Oh, it's always about the people for me, catching up with people, having a yarn, meeting new people, and of course the new information that you hear at these events is invaluable. So, but seeing people, friendly faces like yourself and others, that's what's most valuable. I think you're always building on those relationships and connections that you've made, and I love meeting people, and particularly new people. So, it's great. That's probably one of the highlights for me.
We've had a number of speakers this morning. Any highlights, any quotes? I've got one in mind I just can't get out of my head from Walter. But any ones that you have quotes or you just love their particular presentation?
Particularly enjoyed Fred, which I'll come back to. But the one quote before I forget it was that soil without biology is just geology.
That was a cracker, wasn't it? That was Joel, but who was it Arden Anderson or someone said that? There was some other one's quote, I think. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, or actually Fred quoting, I really enjoyed Fred Provenza this morning. The way he builds that story, and it's a story that's familiar to you and I, but it's not that familiar to a lot of other people. But the way he builds that story historically, and then to put a picture as to why we are where we are now, and what we need to be thinking back on and get back to. All those things around food, nutrition, nutrient density of food, even 50 years ago, let alone 200 years ago. And he had some really good quotes there from Aldo Leopold too. And that's for me, that's been the highlight this morning for sure, listening to Fred. And I've had his book on my bloody bedside table for probably a couple of years, but I'll go home and put it on audio and listen to it on the road.
Nutrition, what is it called?
Nourished.
That's it. Well done.
Yeah.
Walter. I mean, how cute is Walter? I just love the way it's all just rolls off his tongue. There's and his quote, like, rootability.
Yeah.
Wasn't that just... I just love that.
And
I actually don't know what he's talking about, but it sounded funny.
Yep, and the mobile biodigesters, I always joke with the federal government having $500 million or something for someone to come up with a means of sequestering soil carbon, and I can't wait to take a cow down to Parliament House and say it's here. It's been made for quite some time now. You can call it innovation if you like, but so it was a really engaging talk, and we were just talking about it at lunchtime, and I think for someone who is new to this journey, it's very digestible, it's very understandable, it's quite relatable, it's common sense, it makes sense, and the way he evolved that story from a rock to soil that's got plenty of air in it, plenty of fungi in it, plenty of microbes, plenty of hydration, etc. That's easy to understand. It's quite palatable, and that's the most important thing I find with an effective speaker, is someone who can really communicate a message clearly, articulately, in a concise manner, and that's understandable for anyone. So.
And the whole morning was a bit of a theme in terms of the simplicity of the content. Joel Williams just wrote, didn't it? He just rolled it out, and there's a lot of people in that room who are, pretty advanced regenerative farmers, so to speak, but it's the way that was all presented, every single one of them was just compelling to anyone who just walked off the street. It would be hard for them not to sit up and go, wow, that's actually really interesting kind of info.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it's one of the things that RCS does so well is bring people to this community. They're a business that is all about people, and there's people here that, this would be one of the first sort of conferences or functions or events that they've been to learn about regenerative agriculture, and if that's the information they're hearing, it's absolutely terrific. That's the foundation they're getting, or foundational information they're getting to start that journey, and it's, in a lot of ways, it's irrefutable. I mean, the science community loves that word because the evidence is irrefutable. There's not been a huge amount of data and stats and numbers this morning, but there doesn't need to be. And that's what, everything we're talking about in terms of regenerative agriculture is bringing things back the way natural systems used to work, and how they manage this landscape. So it's why, in some respects, you could look at some of those presentations and say they're quite simple, but it actually is, and that's what we've got to do is simplify the whole process, what we do, back to how Mother Nature used to do it.
Simple solutions. Any actions you're going to take away from this the conference, Stuart? We're a quarter of the way in. Is there anything that putting aside the cocktail party tonight, might be a few actions there tonight on the dance floor, but anything you've just gone, I'm so going to do that when I go home, or anything?
Listening to Fred's book for sure. Probably I haven't written down. I normally do, and I haven't yet, but I'm sure I will over the next couple of days. And we shouldn't forget Diana Rodgers' talk too was fantastic. She's doing such important work there in terms of combating a message that is just so prevalent in society these days. And it's a thankless bloody task, what she's pulled on, but she's doing a hell of a job. And again, articulating things clearly, concisely, easily understood. Any punter can see that information and say, well, that makes sense. So it's absolute credit to her.
And she's copped the hiding, the book and the doco. But she has, she's very courageous to have just gone, I know it's going to happen, and just went on because she thought it was important enough to do that. So she's fantastic. Stuart Austin, thank you for your time. I just heard the bell ring for the next session. I can't even remember what's actually on the next session. Are you on? Are you doing anything, Stuart?
No.
Why not?
Are you?
No,
Ooh.
This is as formal as I get.
We're all used.
We're spent. We're like the smoko from this morning. It's all gone. Mate, thanks so much for your time. We're going to whack this out on a podcast season 6. So you will get your second crack at the title.
As long as it gets more listens than Bart's. That's amazing. Look, and just one other question while I've got you. Is it the same one from 4 years ago, or is this a new one? I mean, the shirt's changed. The shirt's kind of evolved with some stripes on it now.
It's probably, gruesome stripes. You want a pup from this one? I'll give you one. No, this is probably the same one, but I have washed it probably once.
Oh, good.
In the last 2 years.
Okay.
No, hang on. Oh, no, it needs another one. Thanks, mate. We'll get back to it.
Thanks, Charlie. Good to catch up.
Blaire Beattie, welcome to the outside area of the RCS 2022 conference, Convergence, a convergence of agriculture, health and environment, I believe is the tagline we should be using. Hashtag RCS 2022. Mate, you're the captain of Farmers Footprint Australia. Is it captain? Or are you like 2IC?
I'm not sure if we'd use captain. We're non-hierarchical at Farmers Footprint, so we're a co-creative collective.
Okay, there's no leader there at all. That's fine. That's good. It's just like fungal hyphae. Everyone's just doing it all together.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Unless something needs to be done, and then I'll marshal the troops.
So you're the marshal. So you are a captain, mate. Tell us about it. It's launched recently. The initiative, the reason, and then we'll get onto the conference.
So, yes, we've just recently launched. I think it was May that we launched in Australia. We've got a sister charity in the US, obviously called Farmers Footprint. We are Farmers Footprint Australia. We are here to give voice to the regenerative food story in Australia. So we want to be content creating across all sectors, supporting farmers that want to transition, bringing awareness and education to consumers, to stakeholders, and amplifying what we have as our potential food transition. Pretty important stuff, I reckon.
Mate, that's pretty much, that'll do. Thank you, Blaire. That's all we need to know. Mate, that's awesome. So you put out a wonderful video a couple of weeks ago now. That's like a bit of a sniff of the storytelling and the stories that need to be told.
Yeah, and your good self was kind enough to take part in that. So thank you again. And no, we're not paying the invoice. Exorbitant.
I did time. How rude. You said you would. Anyway, no, it was lovely. Very happy to donate time to such a wonderful organisation and initiative. That's out, and then there's more stories to be told. There's never ending, really. I mean, given what we're hearing and seeing at the conference here, and it's just lunchtime, so I've only been a quarter of the way through, there's a lot to be told, isn't there?
There's so much to be told, and I think it's really important that we tell these stories now. And we're skillful enough to engage consumers on this journey. That's kind of our point of focus at the moment. Who has the potential to help shift the dial for us? And that's consumers becoming really aware of our food predicament and how we can heal ourselves and the planet in the process of agricultural transformation.
Any favourites this morning without getting in trouble for nominating a favourite?
I don't play favourites, but I do always love listening to Mr. Walter Jenner.
That's so diplomatic. You are entering politics shortly anyway, so that's you've good practice. No, he's not, everyone. Walt, what a legend.
Amazing man, what a beautiful, beautiful human that has so much to share and always gives you time to share it. If anyone hasn't tuned into his work, please do. We're up here filming, doing a short film for RCS just to capture that beauty and the amazing people we have it's almost like a gift. All these amazing humans have come together at this one place in this one time, and we're lucky enough to be presented with the opportunity to shoot as in film, these
Careful.
these amazing humans. So we look forward to sharing a bit of that, and your good true self will be part of that as well, I'm sure.
Yep, and I'll be sending another invoice for that. Anything, any takeaways? Anything you've sort of even heard in this short few hours today that you're thinking, I'm going to go and do that, I'm going to make that call, I'm going to do that research, or any sort of actions that you're going to get on with?
Well, I'm going to go to Yeppoon.
Your knife, your fork, your poon.
Yep. I've been inspired. I just want to hang out with the RCS guys a little bit more. So it's not...
Yeah, mate, I'm not sure. Chatting with Dave McLean before, I'm not sure he wants to hang out with you, mate. You might want to check in.
Well, yeah, they don't have a choice. I'm not going to get enough of them and enough time with them this weekend. So in August, I'm going to go up to Yeppoon and hang out and just annoy them and knock on their door of their houses at inappropriate times. So, but any takeaways? There's probably a few, but my mind is a little bit too scattered to really recall too many of them because there's a lot going on.
Come on, Walter's quote of the conference. I don't think anyone's going to outdo that.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, you were.
Was I?
Rootability.
Oh, yes. Okay. Rootability.
No one's allowed to edit that from any video audio. It's Walter.
Yes, that was a gem and probably a timeless one that we'll talk about for quite some time.
I love his turn of phrase. And I love you, Blaire.
That's big of you to say. Probably too much.
No, I know. It's a bit rude publicly. No, mate, all good. Thanks for your time. Looking forward to having a chat with you and the crew when tomorrow, I think.
Tomorrow
when time permits.
Morning tea break.
Yeah, well, to Smoko, mate. It's called Smoko.
Yeah.
I did a conference once. And I said, and today we're going to have Smoko, lunch and Smoko, and blah, blah, and then a lady came up and said, no, you can't, Charles, you can't say Smoko. Anyway, so I got up at lunchtime, and Smoko this afternoon is going to be, poor old lady, but it was good fun. Mate, thanks for your time, and you can get back to the show if you want to or need to. We're going to try and round up someone else.
Please, thank you. Always good to have a yarn, mate.
Thanks, Blaire.
Cheers, buddy.
See you, mate.
Bye.
Cole, welcome to it is the Regenerative Journey. This will be appearing, I didn't tell you that bit, it's going to be appearing on one of our episodes in season 6.
Season 6 is my favourite number.
There you go. I won't ask why. And it is going to be like a compilation, if that's the right word, of...
the best, greatest hits.
Yeah, well, just depending on how you perform the next 10 minutes, right, mate, you may or may not appear on it. So we're going to put together probably the best bits of the conference, little snips like this. So, mate, you've been watching attentively the whole day, haven't you?
I have.
Were any favourites? Any sort of takeaways, nuggets of gold that you found?
I think Walter's just getting better and better. And it was definitely the rootability of soils had it for me.
That's a quote of the day. Probably the whole conference.
I agree.
Drop the mic.
You've got it.
Anyway, anything apart from Walter? Anything else?
I think I've never really been to one of these RCS type events with such a large group of people. And I think, the depth and breadth of discussion was something that I didn't expect. And, yeah, quite enjoyed it.
It's probably not what are you saying? You think it's like, it's not quite as good as the Maya grazing, field day at Wilmot.
Well,
is that what you're trying to compare it to, Cole?
Well, we don't have to go there. But I just think I've spoken to a lot of people in between sessions, and everyone's getting a whole lot out of it. And it's a wonderful collection of people and speakers, and having that combination of people zooming in from overseas and lives, great lineup.
And 600 plus people. I think, and this is 12 years since the last one. Obviously, it's been delayed 2 years, so 8. Let's say 8 years. It probably, let's assume 8 years to the next one. I think it's probably too far. That's too far to wait, isn't it? Do you think?
Oh,
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I reckon it is.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I've been to a bunch of the RCS type events. I go to kit days whenever I can get to them. I've been to a couple of grazing clinics. I've done a lot of stuff online. But like I said, never been to one of these big events. And in terms of just the quality, I think, and also this community, 10 years is way too long, right? Yeah.
That's what a couple. Now, why don't you give my grazing a bit of a wrap while you've got the conch?
Well, My Grazing, planned grazing software with a whole lot of support to help graziers actually take those practical steps and put regenerative practices into place in a supported fashion and put numbers behind everything that they do to get objectivity around this whole space, because the rubber hits the road with planned grazing. So it's fantastic to see many customers here. There was a long time there when I knew every customer, literally from customer one. Now people are coming up and I haven't met before, and other people in the team have taken them through the journey and the onboarding and so forth. And it's really caused me to reflect on what we've achieved as a business over the last 7 years. Probably 2/3 of our clientele here in Australia, 1/3 North America, and a smattering amongst that sort of everywhere else. But and there's no small amount of customer base within the room here today. So it's wonderful.
Any other things that you, on the back of today, we've got another day tomorrow, day 2, but anything from today you're thinking, I'm going to go home and do that, or make that call, or do that research, or follow that up? Any actions that you're going to commit to, Colin?
I've got no doubt there will be. I'm definitely reflecting on a few things today that I wouldn't have thought that I would have come here reflecting on. And
Like what? Tell us.
Well, a little bit about, my willingness to participate in interviews ad hoc. Like, I'm not sure if I'd actually do that again.
You're actually doing really well. I don't think I'm going to cut out any more than 90% of this interview to make it public.
Yeah.
You're doing well.
Yeah, no, thank you. But it caused me to actually think a lot back to, I studied systems agriculture at university, and at the time, it was almost, they're the heretics. People were going ag ecos and so forth, and I didn't fit to that crowd, and I was very happy with where I was, but it almost feels as though it's there's parallels between that and regenerative agriculture, and this term regenerative or systems, and I tend to sort of think it just makes sense, right? So why isn't it? It's just responsible agriculture, and people are talking about the labelling and the us and them and so forth, and I'm very conscious whenever I'm speaking to anyone that contacts our business, a prospective customer or otherwise. I never mention the word regenerative until they do and understand that context, because it can be polarising, and I'm quite conscious of that. And I think if we're talking about that in this space here now, what are we going to do about that?
Well, it was interesting. Walter said, he's not a young buck, doing soil science CSIRO in the late 60s. As he said, we've been talking about it for 50 years, and you could sort of sense not his frustration, but he was just, he just acknowledged the fact that there's been a lot of talk, and then now we need to get rubber on the road. You mentioned a word, and I love that, responsible agriculture. That's great. We better TM that. I'm going to TM it before you do. Yep. Or have you already done it?
Mate, do it.
But I love it because, responsibility is made up of 2 words. Response. Ability.
Yeah.
Your ability to respond, which is pretty much what I think responsible agriculture is about, isn't it?
Well, it's about being responsible to the land, responsible to your family, the economy, social, encapsulates it. And so people want to label things, right? And I think about that and I wonder why. And typically because, you've got to get a band of people behind it, and it's got to have a narrative, it's got to have a story. But I think we need to break things down to even simpler forms. And, Well,
you heard it here first, everyone. Responsible agriculture. Or have you been using that?
No, I've stolen that from someone else. Someone said it to me on the phone. But,
or we'll TM it and it'll be ours.
Yeah.
Or mine.
Drop the mic, Charlie.
Drop the mic. Cole, thank you so much. I appreciate you getting over your reticence to appear live on...
well, when you chased me into the toilets, I thought, God, this guy's not going to give up.
3 times. 3 times.
That's right.
Thanks, Cole.
Good on you. Thanks, Charlie.
Looking for more information to assist your regenerative journey? Come join Charlie and his guests around the kitchen table, an online community of supporters with exclusive access to the Regenerative Journey interview transcripts, live online Q&A sessions, a chance to engage with other like-minded people and more. go to www.charliearnott.com.au/the kitchen table. And if you're not totally satisfied with the value of your membership and wish to cancel it within the first 2 months, we will give you a full 100% refund, no questions asked. Now let's get back to this week's episode.
Cherie Gooding, welcome to the outside of the RCS conference. I probably should stop saying that. I say that every time to all my guests. We're here at the 2022 RCS Convergence Conference, Convergence of Agriculture, Human Health and Environment.
Planet Health, isn't it?
Planetary health, that might have been it, global, planetary. Tell me, what did you come here for? What were you hoping to sort of get out of it? You were a late starter?
Yes, only because of timeframes, and being involved in the workshop next week. But as the speakers started coming through, it was just too good an opportunity to miss. To, some of the best heads in the world, really, in this space. So made my way down here. Get involved.
Yeah, well, you'll be at the next one, the next Convergence, I'm sure, in 10 years' time. You ready for that?
10 years.
10 years. You've got 10 years to get your spiel worked out.
We've only got 10 years, according to Walter.
That's right. We might be here in 10 years. Yeah. No, it'll actually be 8 years because we're 2 years. We've only got 8 years to 2030, haven't we? So you better hurry. You only got 8 years to get it together. Tell me, any favourites this morning?
Oh, it's hard to choose. Fred Provenza. That's stuff that I've been meaning to follow up for, in more depth for a long time, and definitely will now after hearing a bit more from him and stuff that I'm very, very interested in. And, Diana, obviously having a listen to what she had to say and just pushing the whole madness of the red meat scenario and fake meat scenario that's going on, and lots of things to follow up there and just get a much, much better understanding of all that's involved. So, great speakers this morning, all of them. Walter, cute Walter. He's so cute. I just love him because it's just in no notes. He just rattles it off, and then he does. I love his whiteboard moments, and it's so simple, isn't it? He had his rock breaking down with organic matter and the fungal sort of growth and all those things. Some big words he was using, and then the way he sort of stepped through the A, B, C, D. Yeah, that was awesome. Can you remember that one? Do you want to step us through that? Or have I put you on the spot? Yeah, well,
do you want that one on notice?
A was agriculture. I remember that bit, and then B was burn. But then he had everything else involved in the middle of that. C was what? Carbon. And D was dividends. So what we end up getting at the end of it all. How'd it go? Not bad, eh?
Awesome.
I was listening.
You were. That was a test, the first of many. And the B was good because the burn is like the option that a lot of conventional farming and farmers do, and we used to do a lot of it. And that also included in that sort of scenario was use of chemicals, ploughing, bare fallow, sort of all of the things I guess we as conventional, we've moved away from. And then the alternative to that is the C, which is the carbon, which is all of the sequestration and the sugars and all that sort of stuff. That was a really compelling way to put it. We were also saying to a few of the other victims we've pulled out here in the last couple of hours that that anyone walking off the street would be hard pressed to sort of want to walk out again, given the sort of the quality and the articulation that we've been hearing.
And just articulated in a way that is so simple to understand. And there's a lot of complexity to what is being said, but I think that's the brilliance of the speakers that have been put together for this weekend, is that the penny just keeps dropping on various different things, and you might have heard it before, but it's just they're all speaking it in a way that anyone could get. Yeah.
And Joel Williams was great, and I don't know much about Joel, but he's so articulate, and it was really not so much well practiced, but it just rolled off the tongue, and his slides and some little new sort of concepts there. I like the last one he put up about, when whoever it was that invented, I mean, that's even controversial, isn't it? Was it Tesla or was it the Edison, the light bulb? Yep. That it wasn't the improvement of the candle that got to the light bulb. It was like a different way of thinking altogether.
Yeah, which was the box, completely outside the box thinking. Yeah, which is what we have to do.
We do, and there's a whole lot of people in there who I think they're here because they want to, or they are thinking outside the box. Any actions that you want to already in the 25% of the way through the conference? Anything that you've just gone, I'm going to go and do that, read that, contact that person, anything that you're going to go and, action?
Yeah, I think I'm going to chase Fred up and just try and touch base there if I can. That's an angle that I think I can incorporate into what I'm going to be doing in the near future.
Why? What are you going to be doing? It's time for a plug.
Yeah. So kicking off, I'm a vet by trade for the last 16, 17 years, and I'm going to kick off on the holistic veterinary consultancy aspect of it now, and tired of big pharma and all the rest of it and the quick fix prescriptions, and going back to basics and from a beneath the soil approach right through to livestock health. Yeah.
Because it's one thing to have a healthy, like to try and, want a healthy cow, but it's so much more than just like, what's the problem, what's the quick fixes? You're stepping all the way back, which you are well versed in, because I've seen your farm and I've sort of seen what you and your family are doing up there. So I think that is a absolute necessity. We want more of that sort of integrated, holistic approach to, looking at it from animal health, but where's it all sort of come from? So looking forward for you to launch that. I know you're doing a bit of pilot program stuff at the moment.
Yes, yeah. And it's just getting back to the whole of symptomatic, not fixing the symptomatic side of it and going back and finding the actual cause. And there is a demand growing for that now. People actually want to understand what the cause is and are willing to delve into that. So it's been encouragement and chasing from clients, and I think I've got the knowledge base there now to do it and be of benefit to them.
And ever developing and growing, as always. And also, just back to Fred, I think Graham Reese has a masterclass kind of online version of what Fred's done. And I think from what I heard today, Fred, that was the last one he's probably going to do.
Yeah.
So you can get on his, I just can't remember the name of it, but we'll put it in the show notes anyway.
Yeah.
Cherie, thanks for your time. Any other sort of parting words, phrases, exciting? I won't ask the billboard question again.
No.
Because Cherie is going to be appearing in season 6 after our interview a couple of weeks ago. So no more billboard, but any last little...
Well, I did rethink that whole billboard thing afterwards. So I'll summarise it for you. So,
was it quite long? I can't remember.
It pretty much, and it was only because a friend asked me afterwards, but that we can't look after the livestock above the soil unless we look after the livestock under the soil first.
Drop the mic. Cherie, thanks for your time. Looking forward to hanging out with you more over the next couple of days, and all the other speakers and the 500-600 other people that are here. It's such an amazing... we've all waited 12 years for this. Actually, it's probably... I can't remember last time I came to an RCS conference, but this is amazing. And, enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Will do. Thanks very much, Charlie.
Pleasure. Murray Richardson, welcome to the RCS Convergence Conference. We're sitting outside. Smoko's just been, the bell's gone, but I want to track you down just to see what were your thoughts have been of the Convergence so far. We're Smoko of day 2.
Yep. Oh, thanks, Charlie. No, it's great to see you. Yeah, look, it's terrific. I think I just love the focus on food and nutrition. And taking that right back to soil. It makes so much sense. I mean, I've only ever worked in the food sector, and to really get in and understand how things work, you've really got to go right back down to that producer level. That's where the nutrition comes from. You can do lots of stuff with a base product, but you've got to have a good base product. And so it's lovely to see the momentum in it. And I do agree with a lot of people that there's. It's an undeniable movement now, which is really good. And I think increasingly, younger people they're grabbing a hold of it. They really see the relevance of it. So, no, it's terrific.
And Murray, what are you doing now? Tell us about what you're doing now in the food world.
So, we're working on Highland Beef Pastoral Company. So, we're running a herd of cattle in Australia for a customer in the US. And so every animal we own in Australia is pre-sold into the US. We're selling it as box beef. It's grass-fed, antibiotic-free, hormone-free, completely traceable, free to roam, all that sort of stuff, which obviously is a growing market and one we think has got a lot more growth in it. Obviously, The Americans really value what the Australian farmer can actually develop because they really trust the product. They trust it even more than their own, which is, an enormous opportunity for Australia. And we do a great job of grass-fed product. So, look, we've got a series of farms, northern New South Wales, southeast Queensland, where we're partnering with the farmers. We supply the cattle, pay the farmer a fee, they deliver it. So it's a capital-free, price risk-free sort of model. I think the thing I'm interested in sort of see if it comes out of this conference is, there's a lot of focus on the farm. I think there needs to be a focus on the supply chains and the consumer as well. And I'm really hoping that, that's something that we can see develop up.
We were just chatting before briefly, Murray, and you just sort of dived into sort of almost, it was like accountability of, historically and I guess what accountability we can create going forward. Do you want to sort of touch on that again?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've only ever worked in food, and I think it's, I worked for some of the really big food companies in Australia and overseas, and you're delivering nutrition to people. It's a big thing, and you can pack a lot of stuff into a packet, and ultimately, as a community, it's around health and vitality, and it's around and so much of that comes from food. And I just, I look at some of the conversations yesterday, and the ethics of, I suppose, creating questions around nutrition is really interesting to me in the longer term. And the point that was made really late yesterday around the first 1,000 days of nutrition for a person, you think about the rising plane for an animal. It's no different, right? It's a young body needing to grow and nurture. And I look at some of the questions around yesterday around, advising people about what goes into their nutrition or how you're actually limiting their access to nutrition in certain days and saying that's right and pre-imposing that on other people for your own outcome, and yet taking no accountability for the future health outcome. I just find that really challenging, and I just think it's, it does require a lot of leadership. And I think that's, one of the things that you can certainly see in the group of people that are here at the moment is that there's, certainly from the farm perspective anyway, there's great leadership around just a better value product. And, I think it's also up to big food retailers around helping people understand the benefit of nutrition, the benefit of seasonality. There's a lot of ways to improve your diet by just doing very simple things, not necessarily, having to go out and spend more money, just shopping seasonally, and it's, our community, it's become a hard thing. We don't teach our kids about it because it's there all the time. So yeah, I just think there is a requirement, I think, on leaders in the community to really start thinking about these things because, the best health system is one where people are healthy. You don't have to have, we do have people that can't be that way. So yes, you've got to have a system that caters for them, but so much of your health comes from your nutrition, comes from your environment, and I really think that's something we should all focus on. Yeah.
It should be called the illness industry than the health industry, isn't it?
Yeah,
because that's kind of the outcome. It depends on illness and the perpetuation of illness for its survival. So why in the bigger picture, dare I say, they're not looking to get people healthy. At the end of the day, generally, it is because if everyone's healthy, it's like, well, then there is no industry. There's no money to be made on that. And the food which we have to eat, put your hand up if you eat food, everyone, then we've got that choice every day, don't we? So, and I think that, there's 600 plus attendees here. What I see that as potential. It's opportunity, and they're already doing a lot of good stuff. And I love Zach Bush's thing this morning. Yeah. There's a lot of doers in there, and he said we've got to be being. Yeah. We've really got to be sitting there and being, and that exercise, that visualization, just blew my mind. I've seen him talk before, but just the way, like unscripted. He knows that it's just he just lives that. What came out of him was him, and in those words, and it was such a powerful thing. So, and I think the way it's been rolling for the last, up to this point, the day and a bit, it couldn't be better. The range of speakers. Any highlights? That you won't get in trouble. You know, won't get you in trouble.
I just loved the whiteboard yesterday and the spongy soil.
Walter.
Well, it was just so good. It's just such a, it's a really easy thing to see, and you look at it and I really like that. Actually, I love the focus on the 1,000 days of nutrition too. I'm really, I just think, and I like the link back to food. It is all about food. Ultimately, it's about nutrition. And, I'm this morning, I actually really enjoyed, just sort of challenging people about thinking about those bigger issues, those bigger sort of systemic societal issues. And it does, really when we don't need a lot, we need food, we need shelter, we need a number of basic things. We complicate it a lot, but ultimately you've got to be able to deliver those simple things really well for people.
Lots of great examples of that here, Murray. We'll wrap it up. I think the next session started, so we'll. Thanks for your time, Murray. Awesome.
Good on you. Thanks, Charlie. Good on you.
Matty Tonkin, welcome to the RCS 2022 conference. We're standing outside. It's the afternoon smoko of day one.
Yeah.
Impressions of the conference so far? Anything that's really stuck with you?
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, it's been great. I love Walter Yenna. I always do. I had a chat to the lady that did the Welcome to Country this morning, and I just think that's so important, that spiritual connection that RCS brings to their teaching, and having that straight up. Joel Williams is a great presenter, very smart fellow. I've seen him a couple of times before, and he's just really good. And to tell you what, the last lady that we just had on from Mount Pleasant Station, and her story of what they've achieved up there and the importance of people, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I just, that for me is my purpose in doing what I do too. So that touched with me, and the curlew is one of my favourite birds too. So
what a lovely cry, the curlew cry.
Haunting, yeah. It's Australian bush all over, and when you hear them, you know where you are.
And that was, I hope I get a name right, Garland Mullen, is that it? Mullen, yeah. It was so heartfelt, wasn't it? There was a couple of tears. I didn't cry, I promise.
Yeah.
No, there's a few tears in the crowd.
You could feel her connection to country, and that's what it's all about, isn't it, really?
Talking about, now, what are you doing now? You said, you mentioned just a second ago about what you're doing. What are you doing, Matthew?
I've just changed roles, so I'm the regional manager for Faulkner Farming, so I've gone back to the corporates. This is really exciting because we're using all regenerative practices in our purpose, and it's not just a mission statement anymore, it's actual fact, and it's being implemented over quite large areas. So it's foreign investment and Australian money. I look after the East Coast, which basically that's where we're operating at this stage. It's very early days, it's only 6 months old, and about to probably quadruple over the next couple of years. So I'm really excited. It's a huge opportunity for me to implement all the things that I love to do, work with the people I like to work with, and make a definite and long-lasting change. Yeah.
Any sort of takeaways from what you've heard, things that you think, I'm going to go home and do that?
Yep, Jolie Williams gave me a prompt today, and he's talking about mixing up things with companion cropping. We've had a little failure on a small area of cropping country, not 100% wipeout, but I'm going to go home and re-sow another crop across the top of barley and use a legume this time, and I'll just move my GPS lines across 7 centimetres and winter row crop it, and it'll be as simple as that. So it'll stay as a cropping paddock, but will make a difference.
And do you think that might improve, like the barley might just recover? Is that kind of the thinking? You might harvest that and the legumes are there to sort of like...
No. Well, yes and no, but I'm actually taking into mind Walt Davis's saying is do no harm. So the recommendation is to spray it all out and replant it to a crop. I don't want to spray it out. I don't want to use the chemicals again, so we'll just plant something else in on top of it, and grows something instead of killing something. So we'll harvest something off it, and it might be enough to make the profit that we need to for that area for this year, and we'll learn from it and see how it goes.
Matty, you mentioned before this will hopefully get on an episode of season 6. I know I'm going to track you down to do a proper episode, but this is like a little teaser, a Matty Tonkin teaser. That's what it's going to be called. You mentioned a favourite podcast. Well, not maybe a favourite one you mentioned before. I just thought I'd give it a plug.
I've got lots of favourites, but I went on a little trip the other day, Charlie, and I listened to the one when you had your wife, interviewed her, and I thought it was fantastic, hearing the stories of those people that are in, with and around members of agriculture that are working in regeneration. It just gives a whole different spin to it, you know. And please tell her. I thought it was. She came. Obviously a very smart and intelligent woman, but she came across really well, and I just loved it. Loved listening to her. Yeah.
I'll pass it on. You're the second person who's actually mentioned that today, and it's lovely to hear other people saying that they're listening and they really enjoy it, and there's some things that they've done because of it, and it's really wonderful with such a large group of people to get that really good feedback. So
I love the Find Your Feet one as well.
Tommy Herschel,
and I contacted Tommy.
Great.
Because what he does is a bit similar to something that I do on the side as well, and I just loved it. It's good stuff.
Sober in the country, give us a wrap.
Sober in the country, we're just working hard for everyone to be able to feel at peace with what their decision is. Yeah, so it's okay to say no if you choose not to, and that's part of me too. I've rebuilt myself over the last couple of years, and regeneration is not just what I do for my work; it's what I do for myself and those around me. So it's it's a story. So. Just chill out and take it easy and learn to respect yourself.
And Shanna's, she's the courageous, force behind that. We haven't. I nearly interviewed her a couple of months ago at the back of my grazing up at Wilmot there, back in February, but timing just didn't quite work out. She's a champ, yeah.
She's a champ. You might struggle to get her now to tell her story, but talk to her definitely about the changes in the bush, and she'll chat about that all day. So. Yeah, it's just an opportunity for us to keep passing that message around, and those that are struggling or feel like they need some help just got to put their hand up, and we're all there to support them on their way through. And now we've actually got some counselling support for those people that need it, so that's really important. It wasn't there before, so yeah.
And it's a great organisation and charity, and if anyone wants to donate, it has tax deductible. What is it called? DGR.
Yeah, it's a non-for-profit, so all the details are on the website. Jump in there and have a quick look, and if you don't want to do it directly, grab some merch, because there's some pretty good stuff.
That's a top hat, that one.
It's a good hat, this one, so I wore it on purpose today.
You got a big head like me, so clearly they make them big enough for people like us.
At least for the really good guys, mate.
For the really smart people. Yeah. Matty, thanks, mate. I heard the bell go. Everyone's buggered off, so we probably should get back in there.
Cheers, Charlie. We'll catch up with you for the full one later, eh?
Thanks, Matty.
Good, mate. See ya.
Damon Gameau, welcome to the outside area at Smoko. No, it's lunchtime, isn't it, on the second day of the RCS Convergence conference? Welcome.
Thanks, Charlie. It's nice to be here. Great to see you again.
It's always lovely to see you, sir. Damon, we're 75% of the way through. It's not over. But what of the first day and a half, any highlights for you that have sort of really resonated, that, any gems, any quotes, any particular prezos that you've just gone, oh my God, that's just mind-blowing?
I think it's the overall feeling of the event is that a sense of community, how strong that is and how that network is growing. But what struck me today was as we were learning about those relationships under the ground and how essential they are, that we're doing the same thing above the ground and that we are mimicking those practices, and lo and behold, it's working a treat. So I had a few heart-opening moments. I think that idea of having someone like Walter explain the science, but then seeing Diane Haggerty show us what that looks like in reality. I got very emotional at some of her pictures, and especially their country, and you realise what nature is capable of in that environment. It shows what we can do. If you can do it there, you can do it anywhere. And so I just have found this an incredibly hopeful day. And anytime you see those examples of regeneration, you can't help but feel emotional. The heart opens because we're all looking for those moments of hope right now. There's a nihilistic viral spreading that's happening, especially through our younger generation. So the more that we can have events like this of charging up our collective batteries and going back out into the world and sharing these messages, I think we all need to do it regularly, just to remind us that there are things we can do.
I love John Kemp's prezzo this morning, where he was sort of getting a little, not esoteric, but sort of thinking about is it about responsibility for outcomes, and so he's getting a little bit sort of, dare I say, a little spiritual there, outside and inside ourselves, and then he sort of hit us with a whole lot of science. There was a really good balance between those two things, which we all, I guess, it's all part of life, isn't it? We got to be grounded and getting our sort of centre. Any other highlights from yesterday, casting your mind back 24 hours after your exhaustive session on the dance floor last night at the dinner, Damon?
Well, I think what you touched on then is interesting, that idea of that spirit or sacred element to this stuff, which, really would have been a pretty radical conversation not that long ago. And to hear how commonplace it's been discussed today, not in a sort of a super esoteric way, but just in sort of understanding that it is an element in all of this, and that paradigm shift that's required of us understanding our role in this great natural system. I think that's been really normalised here, which is really encouraging to see. And again, that gives us all more confidence when we talk about it outside here, that we know we're supported in that thinking, and that is the only thinking that's going to get us through, as we know. I've just found it incredibly stimulating, and especially the different characters that are here, the unlikely types that are here talking about this stuff that you wouldn't have got 5 years ago. You'd never suspect, seeing them walk down the street, that you could have a conversation about these things. And so that should give us huge hope for the way this stuff is spreading and being normalised throughout our culture.
What also gives me hope is the sort of the diversity of people here. I met a guy yesterday who's into robotics. He lives in Manly in Sydney. Nothing to do with farming. He grew up on a farm in central Queensland, and he's just here because this is really important. There's guys who are lawyers who not farming, but they just know this is important. I'm not sure how they've got to be here, but it's really refreshing that it's not just a bunch of farmers talking about farming stuff.
No, I just met a guy then who actually made the Farmer's Footprint film, and he was in advertising and just got so burnt out and said, I've clearly got skills. How about I start using them to tell better stories? And that's exactly what we need to happen, for people to come from all sorts of industries to start sharing this in whatever way they can and contribute. So, again, that's how we have things looking very different in 10 years from now, that it takes all types from different industries that are talking about it or using their skills in different ways. Again, it's those little kernels of hope that we're all looking for, and I really feel that the last couple of days.
Can I thank you, Damon, for your contribution to this space as well? More recently, Regenerating Australia, and 2040 as well, which had a regenerative sort of component to it, but the whole film was about regeneration on sort of different levels. Any news on next projects or sort of focus at the moment that you can tell us about? Happy to edit if you say things you might regret.
Well, I think the thanks firstly, mate. That's a nice thing to say. But the Regenerating Australia, really the film was the very first step in a much sort of broader ecosystem, and just to see the high calibre of solutions that have been submitted off the back of that film, that in partnership with WWF, I think about 30 are going to get funded. And they're really fantastic in their regenerative thinking and process. Indigenous-led energy, lots of regeneration projects on land and in the oceans. So, this sort of network that's forming is incredibly exciting, and I sort of think I'll be playing in that space for a bit longer yet, but certainly starting to think about the next larger scale project, and working with a few really interesting people actually in the States around, who sort of look at existential threats and what sort of things we should be alarmed about that are upcoming, and how would we raise more awareness around that without freaking people out. So there's a couple of ideas we're exploring there, which I'm really interested in. So I think it'll be a balance of continuing the work we've done so far in regeneration here, but then also starting to really put together that next sort of larger feature-length documentary.
And anything specifically that you've learnt from the last day and a half that you're going, I'm going to go and read that book, talk to that person, do that thing, anything that sort of just jumped out at you?
Yeah, it's actually been writing a talk at the moment I've got to give around that deeper layer of how we tell a new story about our relationship with nature. Well, it's a retelling of an old story, because Indigenous had that story and we've lost our way. And I just think that sometimes when we can talk about change, we look at the system level, we look at some of the gadgets and the fixes, but that deeper layer that and talk about, changing the paddock between the ears, your lovely quote there, I feel like there's something really juicy in that, and that people actually get that. They know that unless we change that deeper layer, what's the new story we're going to tell about how we relate to each other in the living world? And then everything comes on top of that. The way we design and think and develop or incentivise has to come from that story. So I'm really curious to pursue that a bit more, because that's come up a lot with Zach and a few others, and I think there's something really juicy in that.
Damon, thank you so much for being on the team, and the team's getting bigger and the impact's getting bigger too. So don't go and start down any other crazy project. Can you just stick
advertising? Actually, I'm thinking that maybe Coca-Cola, Regen Coke.
Pepsi and Coke. Tobacco. apparently it's good for your health. Damon, thanks, mate. And love your work.
And you too, mate. Keep up the great storytelling.
Will do. Thanks, mate. And next week's guest on the Regenerative Journey is Diana Rodgers. She was fresh off the plane, first day in Australia, middle of July it was, just a couple of days before the RCS Convergence conference. She's the co-author of the movie and the doco and the book Sacred Cow. She's all about good health. She's a dietitian. She's a nutritionist. She's many, many things. And we had a lovely chat. I was surprised she was so buoyant, given she'd flown from New Zealand. It was at the end of a very long leg of commitments around the world. Love this chat with Diana Rodgers. I hope you do as well on the Regenerative Journey next week.
This podcast is produced by Rhys Jones at Jaeger Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share, rate and review. For more episode information, please head over to www.charliearnott.com.au.